Hey everybody, thank you for stopping back by my channel, Criminal to Cop. Today we're going to change it up a little bit. I know it's going to be a little sneak peek as to one of my job careers that I had, one of the departments, but I really thought it's something that I needed to talk about. It really bothers me to this day, and it's been a while, um, because it's about Chomos, sex offenders, pedophiles, and me supervising them and how they got special treatment. I felt, well, I know they did. Um, so please hit the like and subscribe button. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit that button. Hit the notification bell for all so you'll be notified anytime I create new content and bust it out. You want to leave a comment, please do down below. And let's get into it. This isn't going to be part of my autobiography telling my life story and how I got into all that. This is actually strictly just going to be one of my jobs that I worked and where I saw the judicial system fail to protect the community in Ohio. Um, and judges, the things they do, they just think they can do anything. It's insane. So let's get started. So I worked for a department. I was a adult felony probation officer, and when I first started, my caseload was about 100. I want to say 100, between 160 and 170 people on my caseload. So when I started, I had to go through each file and go through everything to see, okay, where's this person? Um, what's their crime? Do they have a warrant? Is there a warrant in their file? I had to go through everybody's file and just pick through everything. I had to find out when's the last time they reported, when's the last time they piss test, when's the last time a house check was done. Um, there was a lot of things I had to go through at the beginning to get an idea of where I stood and who hadn't reported. Try to contact them and then issue a warrant for them, whatever. It's part of the job. It's a job. Okay, it was my job, and I took my job. I have a family to support. I took my job seriously. Um, Even though if you watch my videos, I'm not even. I'm 55 years old, so I'm not even halfway. I'm my last episode. I'm going into the. I'm going to be a sophomore. So I still got a lot to go. But I wanted to touch base on this because I see a lot of people talk about the pedophiles, chomos, sex offenders, and I just wanted to give you my take on it, being supervising them. So I'll start before I was I was an intensive officer, which we only had two of. We had 6 officers in our department, and 2 of them were intensive, which means they got the worst of the worst. They got the really bad sex offenders, plus they got anybody murder, uh, people that had been on paper that didn't complete prior. So you're talking a smaller caseload, but you're seeing them 1, 2, 3 times a week, depending on what their situation is. So we'll go back. So let's start from the beginning. So I went through all these files, okay, and I'm going through the files and I'm seeing who hasn't reported, who's got warrants, and I gotta get all this stuff together, and then my appointments, uh, who's already set up. There was a couple people that were on just phone in probation, phone in, and so I had to go through everything. Well, one of the things that stuck out to me was a case that I came across of this older guy. Now I'm 55 now, but I wasn't then. But this older guy that was he had worked for a as a dispatcher for the sheriff's department, and he also prior to that worked as a police officer in a very small little town where they only had there's a lot of little rural towns in Ohio. And he worked for a small um, like one, like probably three guys in the department. And anyway, so he was a sex offender. All right, he liked boys, younger, prepubescent, whatever you call it, boys. He liked boys around 10, 11, 12 years old, whatever it was. I don't even remember exactly. Sick. Yeah, this stuff's sickening. I don't even like to talk about it, but I got to get off my chest. I got to talk about it because this judicial system and them just giving these guys breaks when they're sick in the head, and you're never going to stop them. It's just the way they're wired, and it's just not going to happen. So, anyways, I'm looking through my cases. I come across his case, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, so he got 5 years paper, never spent a day in prison, other than when he initially got arrested, and it was for sexual imposition, I think it was, or pandering. He had photos, and I think he had photos, and what he was doing was since he used to work in the police department, he was getting young boys and like saying, "Oh, I'll teach you how to shoot a gun," and he had all these, things like whatever it was, but he had pictures of them, and I don't know, however he did it, I don't know, because I got the file. It was already done. He was already, went to court, pled what he pled. So one thing I noticed on there is he got 5 years paper. And in Ohio, the max you can get is 5 years. You either get 3, 5, or if you're treatment in lieu, you get 1 to 2. And that's if you have a substance abuse problem, or whatever. And then the felony goes away if you do everything you're supposed to do in your treatment plan. So, anyways, this guy, I'm looking at his file and I'm like, he hasn't reported in like 3 years, okay, in the office. And the officer prior to me that had him on the caseload, I believe had him just on phone in probation, like where he just had to call in because he was a good guy. And I'm reading the notes, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's a sex offender. Okay, let me get this so people understand. And I know people that's either been in my position, parole, probation, or have been to prison, been on paper. You know where I'm coming from when I talk, what I'm talking about. So this guy here, he's phone in probation. Okay, but like I was saying, if you guys understand what our job is supposed to be, our job is supposed to be to protect the community from any of these people reoffending in the community. Okay, that's our job. And that is to keep the community safe from this. Okay. They weren't keeping nobody safe in that community, and nobody in that community knew that. I really felt bad, for the community, because there was a lot of people that reoffended, not just sex offenders. I'm just talking in general. Had reoffended, caught other charges, caught cases, what have you. And, they would get revoked, revocation, get shipped off, go back to prison, whatever. Okay, so in this case, this guy never did any prison time. He did county jail time, which he bonded out when this initially happened, and then he ended up just on paper. How's that happen? Seriously, what judge gives really a sex offender, somebody the worst of the worst? And I got kids, so it really makes me sick to know that, because it's a sickness, it's a mental illness that never goes away. You can't change it, you can't fix it, you can't do any of that stuff. And so, anyways, I'm going through this case. I see all this stuff, and I said, "Oh, okay." Nobody ever went to his house, did a house check, nothing. All right, so I'm going to go do a house check on this guy, because at this point, like I said, 3 years, the past 3 years, he had only had the phone call in once a month. Prior to that, for the first year, he was reporting monthly, and nobody had ever been to his house, and he was about to get released on probation. So it was about 4.5 years. Like, he was literally 6 months away from being released from paper and being back in, well, he was already back in the community, but no paper, no consequences. So I get with my partner and I'm like, hey man, I need to do a house check on this guy. And I told him to run down. He's like, all right, let's go. It was in a little town, 20 minutes away. Well, this guy is like, I want to say older. He looked a lot older than he was. Big guy, heavy set guy. And he was probably, I want to say, in his late 40s maybe, but he looked like he was probably in his late 50s. Got the goofy, big, thick glasses. He just had that. I don't, a lot of people don't say people don't have a look. No, Chomos have a look. 95% of them have a certain look. That's just my experience. Anyway. So we go to so we get to the town where he's at. We're right down the street from the house. And I'm looking through his stuff. He lives with his mom and his dad. Okay. So if he's like 40, 50 years old, or 50 years old, and he wasn't 40, he was in his upper 40s, 50 years old, his parents are got to be 70, 80 years old. Okay. But he was living it with his parents. So we go, and granted, you probably already know. Like I said, if you don't know, I'll explain it to you. And that's the way it worked here, where the department I worked for. When you get on paper, you sign a waiver. The people that you live with sign a waiver stating that we can come in your house at any time we want. We can kick your door, and if you don't answer the door, we can do whatever we want. And that's just the way it goes. That's your price to having freedom and not being sitting in prison. Instead of sitting in prison, you're out here. So he's living with his parents. We go down on the door. He opens up the door. I introduced myself as, and he knew my partner, that I was his new PO. He kind of just had a deer in the headlights look, like nobody's ever come to my house. Nobody's, I ain't had to check in. None of that stuff. He was really nervous and scared looking. So I said, you're going to have a seat right here on the couch, because anytime we go into a house, especially if it's going to be like somebody who's dangerous or anything like that, there's usually a gang of us, and then we surround the house and then make sure nobody going out the back. Nobody's got weapons. We pat him down. So I pat him down. We take the cushions off the couch, check the couch, under the couch, tell him to sit down. And so I can hear a woman saying, "Who is that?" I asked him, I was like, "Who's that?" He goes, "That's my mom." He goes, "She's in a wheelchair. She doesn't get around, So I said, "Okay, who else is in the house?" He said, "Just my dad, my mom and my dad." I said, "Okay, where's your dad?" He's in the bedroom. He's bedridden. And I don't remember what he had, if it was cancer or whatever. I don't remember. But he was bedridden and couldn't get out of his bed. Mom had a really hard time getting around, and she was in a wheelchair. So when I got to the point where I start searching the house, and I'm just looking for anything, right? So I'm walking around. I see, you know, I said, are you dressed, ma'am? His mom. And she said, yes. And her door was open. And I said, okay. So I just kind of looked in and I introduced myself. How are you today? I'm just here to check on your son. We'll just call him Fred. Um, and she was talking a little bit, but like I said, she was in a wheelchair. She could not get around very good. The next bedroom's uh, dad's bedroom, and he's in like a medical bed, and he can't get out of bed. I don't even think he can really talk. Um, Sad situation. So anyway, in Ohio, and like a lot of places in the Midwest or back east, you have basements in the houses, and some of them are fixed up just like the top level, so you get a whole nother level. Like shoot, I had a house, my other house, for my first marriage. Down in the basement. Shoot, I built another kitchen. I put a bar in there, a living room, a bathroom, and then a whole area. I could have made bedrooms, but I just made it storage. So a lot of people have people that live in their basements because it's a lot cooler down there in the summertime, and it's a bigger area, whatever. So I asked him where his room was, and his room was uh, downstairs in the basement. Okay. So I go ahead and search around, just look, go through the kitchen, what have you. My partner's sitting there with him, making sure he's just staying still. I go down the basement. It's not a finished basement, so it doesn't have carpet, like I was telling you, like a whole new house. But there was washer dryers were down there, heat furnace, things like that, your heater. There was a bedroom door. There was a bedroom down there. Okay, so that was his bedroom. But right as I'm walking down the steps, I get to the bottom of the steps. Okay. Straight ahead from me against the wall is a computer desk and a computer screen and a computer on, the towers on the floor. He's not allowed to have a computer. They're not allowed to have a computer, internet access, any of that stuff. And granted, you got to remember back then, phones were not smartphones. So, you had the Nextel, the walkie talkie phone, flip phone, whatever, but they didn't have the smartphones yet. So, one of my strengths was computers. I had a computer shop that I had on the side where I had taught myself and a friend of mine and learned how to work on computers and just different things. And I had a computer store back in the day. So I was always the one that anytime we went somewhere and went and found computers, I'd always be the one going through it. So I get down there, I get in the computer. There's no password on it because, he thinks, like I said, he ain't been checked and nobody's ever done a house check. And he ain't had to come into the office for 3 years, 3.5 years. And the first year was monthly. So he was 6 months away from getting off probation. So I go in there and I get on his computer. There wasn't a password on it. I get in there. I start looking for picture history. And those sex offenders are not stupid. They clear all that stuff off. And so I'm digging through the computer. His browsing history is cleared. Everything's clear. But back in those days, they had something called shoot, I forget what it's called. Now I don't remember. But it was through your email, and you can sign up for these groups through your mail. It was kind of like it was mail groups, and it was kind of like Craigslist in a way. You could search up anything, find anything. Because I searched his emails, nothing. So I get into the email program I was talking about. There it is. Shit ton of naked pictures of boys, I'm not going to get into everything that I found. So I seized his computer, um, went into his bedroom. He had two guns in his bedroom. He had badges. He had all his police stuff still, which he wasn't allowed to have. He wasn't like, oh, you're not allowed to have a felon in possession of a firearm, not allowed to have a firearm. So he had two weapons. Um, he had all his police equipment, which he wasn't supposed to have. He had handcuffs, and like I said, he had badges that he never worked for these departments, but he was using them. They were in a wallet with a case, so I think he was using them to, because these boys' pictures that I found were local boys that he, whatever. Like I said, shooting guns and doing stuff, no shirts on, and then we won't even get into that. So I arrest him, take him to jail. We seize his computer, seize all the stuff, seize the guns, seize everything in the house that out of his bedroom that I found. And he gets charged. I have to file my report so they can send him over to the prosecutor's office. I know in California's DA's office, here it's a prosecutor's office. Same difference. I send it all my report. Then we have to send the computer off to BCI, which is the Bureau of Criminal Investigation in Ohio, and they go through and scan the hard drive and everything and extract all the pictures, whether deleted or not deleted, whatever. You wipe them with a program, they can find it. So we send it to him. He gets charged with 200, I think it was 232 counts of pandering, sexual material of underage minors, and the possession of a felon in possession of a firearm, which in Ohio is disability, firearm disability of a firearm, which it's a weird charge, but basically it's a felon in possession of a firearm. Now, what I have not ever checked on this dude, which prior nobody did, this guy was scot free. He do whatever he's wanting. Well, that got ruined, and he got charged, and of course they pled, let's make a deal. And out of the 232 counts, he pled down to, I think it was maybe 5 out of the 232, and he ended up with, like, I don't know, 5-6 years. Pathetic. Second time, his ass should have went away forever. It's ridiculous. So after that, we're just going to go on. Couple years go on. I have sex offenders on my caseload, but they're supposed to be low level sex offenders, whatever they have tiers, and they're supposed to be low level sex offenders. Sex offender's a sex offender to me. I don't give a crap. You're messing with kids or anything, rape, whatever. It's no good. Or no good. So I get put, one of the intensive officers, that the male, he leaves, resigns, and he's moving on to bigger and better things. I get put in that position. So now I'm dealing with all the worst of the worst, the sex offenders, whatever. I mean, I have several stories to tell you. I could tell you stories, but that's what I'm getting into with my autobiography that I've been doing on YouTube. And I'm going to tell you right now, I just got to tell you this story. Then we're going to stop, and maybe I'm going to do another sequel to this, or in my autobiography. I'm going to, because it's a tell-all, everything. So I've got this guy on probation. All right. He's an older cat. He thinks he's slick, but he tries to play dumb to everybody that he's just a poor old man. He was a short little older guy. He looked like 10 or 20 years older than what he was. Smoked like a chimney. His fingers were all yellow. And he was busted for letting people that came from Columbus, Ohio, come down and sell crack out of his house. And he never did any time. No, I take that. Yeah, he never did any time either, I don't believe. And if he did, I think it was only like 4 months out of, I think he had a 3-year sentence, maybe. I'm not quite sure. So, anyways, this is interesting. So, my boss, the chief at that time, always said, "Oh, I got you guys' back. Always. No matter what happens, as long as you guys are in the right and you're doing everything, you don't do anything to mess up, I've got your back 100%." Yeah, he didn't have your back. He was a backstabber. So, anyways, I got this guy. And if you've been on paper, you already know. Here, if you violate, you got to show progression. And when it gets to like 3, 4, 5 violations, you're done. Revocation time. So like little stupid things. Like he was ordered to do GED classes. He wasn't going. He scammed this guy out of money, out of a junkyard actually, and then never paid him the money. And just and he never told me, which he has to tell me before he buys a business or anything. He didn't. And he was on Social Security where he got the money from. Well, he didn't have the money, but he told this guy he did. So anyway, I get called in the chief's office. The chief says, "Hey, you got court next week." I'm like, I usually know when I have court. I have it on my thing when I have court for revocation hearings or whatever it is. He said, on a personal level. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm not going to say the guy's name. He gets an attorney out of Columbus, takes me to court, and because I had arrested him several times on violations, and each time, like I said, maybe the first time's 10 days in jail, second time's 30 days in jail, or 20 days in jail. The third time's 30 days in jail, then you're done. I'm revoking you because you're not following the rules. You're doing what you want to do, so you're going back to prison for the remainder of your sentence, whatever that may be. His was 3 years. I think he did 6 months of that 3 years, so 2.5 years he had left. So I'm like, dude, what? I'm going to court, taking to court. He said, yeah, he got an attorney, and you're too mean. Mean? What? Because I'm doing my job, and my job is to protect the community. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Okay, whatever. So we go to court. Get this. The judge takes him off my caseload because I'm too mean, and I brought back childhood memories of his abuse. Takes him off my caseload. Okay, the chief takes him on for like a month, and then he gives him to my partner. Okay, then I end up resigning. This is within I would say, because this, granted, we talked about when I started and that what happened with that sex offender, but this was years into me working there. I had to resign because I went to another job, better my career, and he gets put on probation or gets taken off my caseload because I'm too mean for doing my job. Chief takes him for a month, gives him to my partner. Well, me and my partner work. Every time he sees me, he starts freaking out. He tells my partner, can he wait outside? I'm like, no, I ain't waiting outside. Because when you're on paper, you have to abide to any officer. It doesn't matter. So they didn't send him to prison when I tried to, because I tried to revoke him. Okay. And that's when this started, where he got an attorney. How he did it, I don't know, because this guy was well known and an expensive attorney. I had sent in for a revocation, and he had a revocation hearing, and then this pops up before the revocation hearing. They take him off the caseload, and he never gets revoked, of course. And that just all goes away. 6 months later, or not, yeah, was it 6 or 9 months later? 9 months later, he raped his granddaughter and he raped his niece, and they were both pregnant with his kid. Then Eventually, he gets arrested for that charges and goes to prison as a sex offender now. If they would have sent him back to prison when I tried to revoke him, instead of taking him off my caseload because I'm too mean when I'm just doing my job, trying to keep the community safe, this would have never happened to his granddaughter and his niece. So what did that do? That ruined the rest of their lives. They're messed up now for the rest of their lives. It's sick, sad. It's sad. I really feel bad for the victims, and I'm sick at the judges and the way the judicial system let the community down, let me down for doing my job. So that's two instances now where I've done my job. I'm going to tell you, I have a lot more. That's why I said judges showing leniency. I have a lot more, and it's coming, and I'm going to let it out of the bag. I mean, I'm going to share it with you guys because there's a lot of corrupt stuff. I mean, I've seen guys get sent to prison for selling weed. Now, granted, this when it was illegal in Ohio, but for selling weed, getting 10, 15, 20 years in prison, and a pedophile, sex offender, chomo, whatever you want to call him, gets paper. He's gonna put on probation, or does 6 months in prison and then gets put back on paper. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? Someone selling weed and someone who's mentally messed up in their head, man, it just doesn't make any sense. I had to get this off my chest, and I got more, but I wanted, this is kind of, I've been doing my autobiography, but I had to share this. I had to share it, and there's more. I have a lot more stories. So if you like that, please hit the subscribe button and then hit the notification bell for all, so you'll be notified of all the new content I'm pushing. Make sure you hit the like button. You got a comment, leave it down below. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. Peace.